Hi guys, today we are going to talk about Schlieffen Plan that could won Germany the whole First World War. And why did it fail? The Russian Empire to the east and the French Republic to west. In case of an war, Germany would inevitably fight on two fronts, but it had a good design plan. In 1905, the Russian Empire, led by Tsar Nicholas II, declared war on the Japanese Empire, led by Emperor Meiji. I'm gonna ask you all, who's gonna win? Russia, who's one of the biggest country in the world with largest army, or Japan, a small remote country in the Far East? The correct answer to this question is the Japanese Empire. Its victory was a big shame for the Russians. After this embarrassed lose, a revolution broke that weakened the Tsar's autocracy and power and reforms were made. This disastrous events were noticed by Nicholas's first-grade cousin, the German Emperor Kaiser Wilhelm II, and also by the German Field Marshal Alfred von Schlieffen, who perfected his idea in the winter of 1905 after Russo-Japanese War. As a result, Russia was eliminated from the major powers list for the future. After a war and a revolution, Russia would have a long recovery. For Germany and Austria-Hungary, Russia didn't become so much of a threat. France was also a big Russian ally, and this was the perfect time for a preventive war plan. Such a war aimed to unleash a war with Russia. While it is weakened in the near future, after that it would become invincible. Also, Great Britain and France seek closer relations to the Imperial Russia. The new alliance between the old rivals, British Empire and France, formed after the First Moroccan Crisis. As a result of the crisis, Germany began to feel the full effects of her own expansionist foreign policy. To Germany, Britain's involvement in war is certain. One consequence would be that Italy, allied to Germany and Austria-Hungary since 1882, would become less reliable. In a war involving Britain, their Italian ally would have a hard time protecting their coastline from the British naval superiority and therefore opt to stay neutral in a war scenario. The international events of 1905 and 1906 marked the beginning of Germany's perceived encirclement by alliances of possible future enemies against it. Between this time and the outbreak of war in 1914, the General Staff was concerned about the increasing of military strength of its rivals. Schlieffen saw Germany's best change of victory in a swift offensive in the west against France, while in east, the German army was initially to be on the defensive. The German army in the west will need to defeat the French army first, then move east and land a decisive blow to Russia. In effect, Schlieffen aimed to turn the inescapable reality that Germany would have to fight the war on two fronts, which it would hope to win. But for the plan to suck, Germany would have to attack France in such a way as to avoid the French heavy fortifications along the Franco-German border. Instead of an head-on engagement, which would lead to position warfare of inestimable length, the opponent should be enveloped and its armies attacked on the flanks and rear. The problem was that France had many fortifications along the border, so that the Germans needed to destroy them. For that, they needed to invade one of their neutral neighbours. Going to Trough, Switzerland would be uncertain because of the mountainous regions, and that would lead to losses, while Luxembourg had no army and Belgium could barely protect its country due to an inferior army. Schlieffen decided to concentrate all German effort on the right wing of the German, even if the French decided on offensive action along the Franco-German border, even at risk of allowing the French to temporarily reclaim Alsace-Lorraine. Schlieffen counted on two things in his plan: that the German victory would be quick — he estimated this to take about 6 weeks, and the Russian mobilization would be slow, so that a small German defensive would hold them back until France would be defeated. After a swift victory in West, he would then concentrate all of their troops on the Eastern Front against the Russian Imperial Army, and with that, Russia would be beaten. This was the recipe for the total German victory, and the only way to get out of their encirclement theory. The plan was first put on paper 1905, before Schlieffen retirement, and it would look similar to this. The troops were meant to target things like major cities, the French capital, Paris, and their fortification in order to defeat them that quick. In 1905, Alfred von Schlieffen retired and the younger Helmuth von Moltke replaced him. He was the new German general chief until his death in 1916. He wanted to review Schlieffen Plan so that it could outstand the modern warfare. The underlying principle remained the same until August 1914. By the autumn of 1913, all alternative plans had been abandoned, so that Germany would have to begin a European war, whatever its cause, by marching into the territories of its neutral neighbours. A cause to start a war happened on June 28, 1914, after the Austro-Hungarian heir to throne, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, was assassinated by a Bosnian Serb nationalist, and that sparked tensions between Austria-Hungary and Serbia. Austria-Hungary suspected the Serbian government about the assassination, and the ambassador of Austria-Hungary, Baron Gisela von Gieslingen, delivered an ultimatum to Serbia on June 23, 1914 at 6 o'clock in the evening. Acting with the full support of Germany, Austria-Hungary was determined in the aftermath of Sarajevo assassination to pursue a hardline policy towards Serbia. Their plan, developed in coordination with German Foreign Office, was to force a military conflict that Austria-Hungary hoped it would win. Knowing that Serbia's ally was the Russian Empire, who was allied with France, that way a great European war would start, of course. The demands were that Serbia would allow Austro-Hungarian diplomats to investigate the case and to ban all any Austria propaganda terrorist groups. The whole world waited for Serbia's response. The ultimatum needed to be accepted within 48 hours after its delivery. If not, a military conflict would start. On July 24, 1914, Serbia appealed to Russia that Austria-Hungary wanted to invade them. Serbia didn't accept the terms, and Austria-Hungary started to mobilize its troops. Serbia and Montenegro would do the same. Austria-Hungary had full support from their German ally. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia on July 28, 1914. This was the start of the war. Then Serbia's ally, Montenegro, declared war on Austria-Hungary. Russia would do the same, and Germany declared war on Russia. Germany invades Luxembourg and issues an ultimatum to Belgium to pass its troops. The following day, Germany declares war on France and invades neutral Belgium. The British Empire, who guaranteed neutrality to Belgium, declares war. It was time for Germany to use the great plan of the field Marshal Alfred von Schlieffen. The Germans could not predict what was about to happen, and they didn't have an alternative plan if this one would fail. There were a number of shortcomings associated with this plan. It imposed severe restrictions on the possibility of finding a diplomatic solution to July crisis because of the narrow time frame for the initial deployment of troops. The escalation of the crisis to full war that gathered the great powers of Europe. It was in no small measure due to Germany's war plans. But more importantly, it unleashed the war with Germany's invasion of neutral countries in West. The violation of Belgian neutrality in particular is proved that Germany was a ruthless enemy. It provided the perfect propaganda vehicle for rallying the country behind an unprecedented war effort and sustained the will to fight for a 4 years long war. Germany could not predict three things that were about to happen. The first thing that Germany faced was a fierce resistance from the Belgian army, who was stronger than the Germans would expect in their plans. They thought that Belgium would simply let them pass their troops in France, but they inflicted major casualties to the German army. One such battle was at Liege, where the Belgian army inflicted massive casualties, which changed Germany's view on them. USA was pro-Germany at beginning of the war, but it changed its opinion after seeing the atrocities Germany did in Belgium. They changed their public opinion. The second thing was, after isolating the Belgian army, they marched in France. The army that was targeted Paris moved closer to the fortification that left a gap which the Franco-British troops could use to encircle the German troops, so they had to retreat, and they marched to the sea and opened the trench warfare on the Western Front. The third thing that they didn't see happening was a fast Russian mobilization, so they had to send more troops on the Eastern Front to fight the Russian who invaded Galicia and East Prussia. But what would have happened if the Schlieffen Plan succeeded? Would the Russian and the British hold their own against Germany without their French ally? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more.